So have you ever been asked to speak up in a meeting or a presentation, or even when you're out socially with friends and there's loud music or there's lots of noise? And maybe your response to that, and unwittingly and unknowingly, is just to really kind of push the voice, maybe use quite a bit of muscular effort to kind of get the voice out. And what you may find is as you try and project the voice and be louder, the pitch tends to rise with it. What can then happen, particularly if we do this consistently, is the voice can start to become strained, tense, tired, squeezed in a bid to be heard. Further down the track, this can cause quite a lot of vocal health issues for us if we are someone that needs to be doing this on a regular basis. It's no wonder in many ways that that is what many people's response is to that, because it's an enormously complex topic and there's so many factors involved in volume, and it requires a lot of coordination. And I would say it also requires some training and understanding of your voice so that you can actually produce volume without unnecessary muscular tension. So I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. And I'm going to give you a little bit of science, but I'm also going to give you a couple of things you can try at the end. And I'm also going to refer you to a few of my other videos, because volume, there's many factors in this. And so it's not just one fix. I think there's many components. And sometimes when you deal with some of the other components, you'll find the voice will just project and naturally just become louder. So firstly, what are the ingredients for a loud voice? Now, I just want to say before I get into the science of this, that I personally believe, and unless there's any trauma or injury to the voice, there's no reason why you cannot have a loud voice if you want a loud voice and you want to be able to project more easily. I personally think, particularly with my Jungian coach hat on, that often when we have people that have naturally loud voices, I say naturally, habitually loud voices or habitually quiet voices, it's normally more to do with socialization and conditioning than the fact that they just have a voice that's loud and these people don't. I do think, and this is immensely complex as well, but a lot of that is down to, perhaps in your family, everyone spoke really loud, or maybe in your family, everyone's got a quiet voice. So we tend to kind of, a big part of my Jungian work is we tend to try and sort of fit in, which includes what we do with our voice. So I just want to sort of give you that seed of thought so that you don't think, well, my voice is quiet, so there's nothing I can do about it. I promise you, if you've got a healthy voice, there's no reason you cannot have a much louder voice. And I think you'd be really surprised at what power can come out of your voice if you understand how it works and how to use it. But also, just to preface that by saying too, of course, bigger instruments, so men have bigger larynxes as a general rule, the voice is going to be louder when it's a bigger instrument. So there are some sort of biological reasons why we might have a louder voice, but that doesn't mean that we can't all have a loud voice and be heard, because the voice is incredibly amazing in its ability to amplify. Back to the ingredients. So I'm going to first of all explain this as simply as I can, the sort of science, and then I'm going to show you, hopefully, I'm going to demonstrate something using my hands. These are going to pretend to be vocal folds, so that I can hopefully demonstrate this, because it may go over your head what I'm about to say, or, it may be familiar to you, but I hope by the end you'll have a better understanding of this. First of all, we need high subglottal pressure or high breath pressure. So the breath comes from our lungs and it meets our vocal folds, and the vocal folds then resist that airflow. So we need enough subglottal pressure, but we also need vocal folds that are able to resist that air pressure. And then the vocal folds are set in motion, and that increase in resistance, that increase in pressure, enables the vocal folds or vocal cords to actually have a greater range of motion. They move faster and there's a greater amplitude, which is all important for loudness in a minute. The other important part of this is, in order to resist the airflow, the vocal folds have to be quite thick to do this too. So this is all important. So I hope I haven't just completely confused you. So my hands are going to demonstrate how this works, I hope. So imagine each hand as a vocal fold. So we have two vocal folds that come together to vibrate. And so each hand is a vocal fold. Now, to demonstrate the full vocal fold, I'm going to use my full hand. So this is the full vocal fold. So you imagine they're like this, and it's the full vocal fold that's vibrating. So that was one of the things that we needed. Another aspect we needed was a wide amplitude. So we're going to have the vocal folds wide. I know this is, you've got to use your imagination a little bit for this. So we've got wide amplitude, we've got the full vocal fold. Then when I clap my hands, I'm going to clap them fast because that's something that we know we need for loudness. And also I'm going to slightly hold them together and press when they come together, because that's demonstrating the breath pressure. So it's going to be like this. So hopefully you can hear that's relatively loud, I mean, from my hands. Now, the opposite of that is also true. So if I do the opposite to all of that, so I'm not now going to use my full hand, I'm going to use, as best as I can, half my hand. I'm going to reduce the amplitude, so I'm going to make it much smaller. I'm not going to sort of linger in the middle, I'm just going to come apart quickly, and I'm also going to go slowly. So it's going to be something like this. So you can hear that one is loud and one is quite muted. I hope that that's given you a very, very, very basic visual, at least, for kind of how this works, because as I say, it is quite complex, and I am sort of talking about the sort of very, very high level, but I hope that's given you an idea, and you can start to see it's a lot more than breath, because you can have a lot of breath, but if the vocal folds can't resist the breath, all that's going to happen is they're going to come apart and you're going to end up with a very breathy voice. Or if you have too much subglottal pressure, so too much kind of press in the vocal folds, then that in itself can cause a lot of squeeze and tension and tightness in the voice. So everything is a balance. We need enough press, but not too much press. We need enough breath, but not too much breath. We need enough pressure, but not too much pressure. So it's all a balance. Everything about the voice is about a balance. So some things to consider for safe loudness. And these are things that I've done videos on these all separately, so you can look at these as individual videos, but these are all going to contribute to your ability to speak loudly. So first of all is warming up the voice. I would be a very rich woman if I got £1 for every time I've said that to someone, but it really is so important to get the maximum optimal function out of your voice. I've done videos on this for speakers, so I will put the link below. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be 1 or 2 minutes in the morning before a big speaking engagement. So just to do that, particularly if you are going to have to be speaking for long periods of time, you're going to have to be speaking loudly, you know, high intensity speaking, and speaking at volume would be considered sort of high intensity. Breathing from that sort of low, slow, deep belly breath is really important as well. We want to drive the voice from the belly. Not what we tend to do is the sort of short, shallow breaths from the upper chest, which then just puts more constriction and strain into the voice. So again, I've done a video on that, so I will link to the video on that as well. Number 3 is articulation. That's not only being more intentional with our articulation, because you will be amazed at what articulation does for the loudness in your voice. It really does do so much with relatively little work on your part. So it's not only that, but it's also warming up the articulators, warming up the jaw, warming up the tongue, warming up the lips. And again, I'll put all that because it's all, I've got one video just about warm-ups for speakers. So it's all there. Number 4 is pitch, and we want to be speaking from what is our natural pitch. Now, I've done videos on this too, but what a lot of people do is they speak way too low for where their voice naturally wants to sit. And then you have to really push the voice out to be heard. Now, this isn't about speaking too high and talking up here or talking down here. It's really finding that nice, again, balance in the voice, that balanced pitch. So you've got some of those sort of upper register and some of the lower register, and that is what really allows the voice to travel. that's going to help you in your bid to speak with more volume, but with less effort. So I will put the link to that video too. And number 5 as well is forward resonance. So the voice being as forward as possible, away from the larynx or the voice box. So again, intentional articulation can really help with this because it naturally brings the voice forward. But I also think when you're speaking, just to think about the voice kind of propelling out of your mouth forward versus sort of reaching up or pushing down. So it's a kind of forward propulsion, so to speak. So there are a few things that we can consider to actually start to develop more loudness in our voice, if this is something that we want, an ability to project without unnecessary muscular effort. So I'm going to give you a couple of exercises now. And essentially what I'm going to give you is 3 words. But there's a few rules for practicing this. So you're going to go from the most quiet to as loud as you can while it's still comfortable. So I don't want you straining to do this. It should feel comfortable while you do it. But I hope that you'll realize actually that you can actually get quite a lot of sound out of your voice with very minimal effort. So we're going to take the first word, which is hey. And what I'd like you to do is you're going to, as you say the word hey, pull your tummy in. So even just that is going to make a huge difference. Hey, hey. And just practice that a few times, first of all, just to get that used to that movement if you're not used to sort of slightly pulling in your tummy as you speak. Hey, hey. And next thing is, if possible, and if you're not sure how to do this, I'm going to give you a quick tip on how to do this, but finding your natural pitch. So do look at one of my other videos, but a very quick way of doing it is to just imagine something tastes nice and you're going, and there shouldn't be any constriction in the neck or anywhere. It should feel really easy. So that is where your voice really wants to sit versus if I do that, I feel like there's a tension in my throat and I feel like everything's being squeezed. So you'll know it's right because it will feel easy. So pulling the tummy in, finding that pitch, and then propelling that sound forward. Hey, hey. And you're going to practice this as quiet. Hey, 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 hey. And as loudly as you can without straining. And just notice, how does it feel? How loud do you feel that you can get with it without the strain? And hopefully be quite surprised. And then I'd like you to do exactly the same thing on the word no and on the word yes. When you say the word no, I just want you to be as intentional with the articulation as possible. So really articulate that N, and the N is the tip of the tongue against the back of the teeth. No, no. So it really helps to bring the sound forward. So we're kind of trying to do a few things here at once. We're working on pitch, we're working on breath, and we're working on articulation and bringing the sound forward. So I hope that's helped. There's quite a lot here. You might want to rewatch this video and go through it, but I will also link to all the videos I've mentioned. And if you have any questions about any of this, please do post below. But until the next video, I will see you then.